So hello and you're very welcome back to the P. Carroll Sport Podcast. Paul Carroll here, and I will be looking back over the course of this podcast, maybe 35, 40 minutes so if I'm doing well, on the weekend that was in the Tipperary County Hurling Championship. Group stage is now in the books. We've a lot to talk about, a lot of talking points from different games, a lot of things to look forward to as well with the draws, so I'll be giving my reaction to that as well, and just giving general thoughts on what happened over the weekend, go down through match by match as we always do, and then kind of see where we're at after the group stages in terms of preliminary quarterfinals. We've a good few of them to look forward to, relegation as well. We have that to maybe not so much look forward to from the teams involved, but that is what's coming up as well. Towards the end of the podcast as well, I'll be going through some listener topics. I put out, if you follow me on Instagram, at P. Carroll Sport, I put out a story earlier today, just looking for topics that you want to discuss after the weekend that was in Tipperary. So we're going to go through all of that and more. First of all, just a big thanks to everyone for tuning in. As always, podcast doing really well in the club season, and a lot of nice comments throughout the week regarding permutations and things like that, with the sheet I put together last week. So good to see that people got good use out of that. I definitely got use out of it while I was commentating, particularly on that Cashel and Thurles Sarsfields game, because it literally came down to 1 point on the score difference. So it was worthwhile doing that. There's a couple of other groups where it came down to that as well. Sean Tracy's and mine, Temple 2, he comes to mind off the top of my head, and there was probably a couple of more that will pop up throughout. So that's just to say thanks for everyone who did get in contact. And also like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It is all free. I did say I was going to wait till after the Ireland match to record this podcast, and I needn't have waited. That was a frustrating 90 minutes of football by Ireland. Yeah, I could do a whole podcast on how disappointing that was in particular. But yeah, really just not up to it whatsoever over in Yerevan. 2-1, but they scored a third goal. They hit the crossbar. The third goal was disallowed through VAR. You're not here to listen to me talk about the Irish soccer team, that's for sure. So we will get into it. Let's just go down through game by game as we always do. We'll start with Group 1 of the Senior Championship, work our way all the way down through the groups, and then we will go to the Premier Intermediate and Intermediate Championship as well. So right, I think that intro was pretty short. 2.5 minutes will take that. So right, Group 1 of the County Senior Hurling Championship, Toomey Vara with a big win over Killadangan. I've also forgot to open up my permutations actually, so I must do that. Sorry, not permutations, my predictions. So let me just do this and get up my predictions, just so I make my predictions in my preview podcast, and we review them as well. So I don't know if my predictions went too well. There was a lot of games this week that were kind of dead rubbers, which, are always hard to predict. Our team's going to play their full team, full strength, etc., etc. So I don't know if the predictions went too well. I have that open there now. Let me see how that looks from that end. Yeah, we will get down through that. Maybe make that a little bit smaller. And that's probably a bit too small. We'll worry about that later on. But anyway, Toomey Vara 126, Killadangan 113 is the first game to go through. Just what a win for Toomey Vara. They were just way better than Killadangan on the day. Killadangan not up to their best at all. 113 is all they managed to score. And the goal coming late on of Willie Connors flicking a ball back into the back of the net from a rebound, from a save, from a 21-yard free. That was late on, and Willie Connors got a few frees as well. So all late on. So Killadangan really didn't produce much from open play. Toomey Vara way more maybe way more up for the game, you could say, but Killadangan folk would be worried, I'd say, after that performance. Now, this team is on the road a long time. They've seen it all, as we've said before, so they won't panic, but it is 2 defeats in a row, and they hadn't lost to Toomey Vara since 2011. Imagine that. Toom hadn't beaten Killadangan since 2011. That was 14 years ago in the North Final. A lot of talking points in this game. We'll go through the goal scores. That was Darren McCarthy. He scored 112. He was really, really good. David Sweeney is one of the kind of top man markers in the game, in the Tipperary club game, and he just had one of those days where he was out in front of Darren McCarthy for a ball, and somehow Darren McCarthy nipped it back off him. So it was a really good performance from Darren McCarthy. As I said, he scored 112. The goal at the end, he just has that turn of pace as well. and that strength and acceleration and composure when he was in one-on-one with Barry Hogan to put it past him. Really good performance by Conor O'Farrell, I thought, for Toomevara in the middle of the field. He scored 3 points, and again we saw this wide range of scores from Toomevara. Adam Hall chipped in with 2. Darren Delaney had a very good game. He scored a point. Kevin McCarthy got 2 points. Austin Duff with a point. 1 each then for Conor O'Mara, Barry O'Connell, Jake Hackett, Jack Delaney. Scores from everywhere from Toomevara. For Killadangan, Willie Connors with 1-5. Ty Gallagher with 2 points. Conor Byrne with 2. Paul Flynn with 2, and 1 each for Sean Hayes and Billy Seymour. Just weren't up to their usual standards at all. Killadangan, Toomevara were just all round better team everywhere on the field. It was just that kind of game where every ball was being fought for, but Toom were winning them. Toom were putting over the scores. They led 15 points to 7 at half time with the breeze in Dala, and you were just expecting the second half Killadangan to come back. Like they've done against teams before, like even against Holy Cross when they were a good bit down, they managed to come back. It didn't happen. Roy Breslan made a great save from Dan O'Mara shot in the first half, but after that Killadangan didn't have too many goal scoring opportunities, but there was a lot of flashpoints in this game. 4 red cards throughout. 1 straight red card for Darrow Dwyer, just kind of a dig into the ribs of Austin Duff after he scored a point. He kind of went back for seconds as well. So that was just a bit of silliness from Darrow Dwyer for Toomevara. Kevin McCarthy with a straight red card really late on in the game after Darren McCarthy got the goal. They were up 124 to 11 points or something at that point. It was a really silly thing to get involved in. He's probably a little bit unlucky. Himself and James Quigley were kind of digging at each other, and it was Kevin McCarthy the one to get the red card. So interesting to see, will Toomevara appeal that? There was an attempted strike there. Did he actually connect? Probably not. But that's I'm nearly sure the rule is attempted strike, and so interesting to see what comes of that. I did think it was harsh at the time. The other red cards then, 2 yellows for David Sweeney. He actually, I think it was him who threw the hurley at Darren McCarthy when he was striking for the goal out of desperation. So 2 yellows for David Sweeney and 2 yellows for Robbie Quirk, who came onto the field. Was a substitution, came onto the field, got 2 yellow cards, also got the jersey ripped off him. I think it was by Willie Connors, that's who I said it was on commentary anyway. And then there was the incident with Rory Breslan and Willie Connors. So Rory Breslan, the goalkeeper for Toom, and came off his line to flick a ball away, and there was a collision with Willie Connors. When we were commentating on it at the time, I was in the stand in Dala. Huge crowd at the game, word mention as well. Just an unbelievable turnout up in Dala to see the game. When I was commentating at the time, I thought, God, that's just a coming together. Looking back on the clubber footage, you're kind of looking, yeah, that's just like coming together, trying to get the ball. But I'm sure at this stage we've all seen that footage from behind the goals, and that kind of sheds a different light on it. So big fan of Willie Connors on and off the field, very sound fella. But it's not a good look, really, is all I can say. It's only he'll know exactly what happened there, but it's just not a good look. There's not too much you can say. As I was saying, when I first kind of saw that clip back, I was kind of rewinding it to see maybe did he trip, did he fall forward, did he get a nudge? But if you're being a TMO in the world of rugby, you'd be saying there's very little mitigating factors there. So certainly not a good one. Wish Rory Breslan really well. He's been kind of unlucky with injuries with his back and things like that. I think he had a knee injury earlier in the year as well, so he's been unlucky that way. So hopefully Rory Breslan not too shook up from that, and hopefully he'll be back for their preliminary quarter final in 2 weeks' time, because he's a massive part of that Toom team with his puck outs and shot stopping ability. So we wish him well, and we'll see where that goes. General reflection of the game, huge win for Toomevara, backs to the wall. They had to win. They came out really energetic, and you just wonder, Killadangan with that safety net, were they as up for it as Toomevara? Subconsciously maybe not, but they were certainly not up to the standard that Toom set in that game in Dala on Sunday. The other game in that group was a surprise win, I suppose, in sorts, if you're looking at group tables. 419 to 221, Clounty Rossmore beat Holy Cross Ballycal. Carl Burke, Stephen Ferncombe and Kieran Quirk, all with goals for Clounty in the first 25 minutes. It was 3-8 to 9 points at half time. The other goal was from Jimmy Maher just a long ball in, and he flicked it before Ewan Burke, the goalkeeper, could get it, and that was into the back of the net on the 52nd minute. The goals for Holy Cross: Jimmy Lahart got a goal early in the second half, and Joe Caesar with a lovely finish for his goal on the 58th minute. I'm really impressed with Joe Caesar. His running ability from midfield. He's a real powerful runner. He's a real hurler as well. So he has the ability, when he's coming through at pace, to play a nice pass, an accurate pass, or he can shoot himself. Holy Cross had a couple of changes, but it wasn't kind of wholesale or anything. Kyle O'Reilly didn't start. I'm not sure if Robbie Ryan started. Some of the young lads didn't start because they're playing on Wednesday evening. But I don't know, can you take too much from that? These are our local rivals. They never want to lose to each other. But it's just the fact that Holy Cross were guaranteed top of the table going into it. They had under 19 games coming up and things like that. Subconsciously, is the intensity there that is required at the Dan Breen level. For Clounty, it's a big win for them heading into what's going to be a strange rest of the season. They have a preliminary quarter final coming up against Drummond Inch, and then they have that relegation looming over them as well if they don't win the Dan Breen. So Clounty holding up the relegation process, and they'll be hoping that they'll hold it up so much that they don't have to compete in it, because that's what would happen if Clounty won the Dan Breen. They wouldn't have to compete in the relegation semi-finals. So that's how that game played out. You know, to keep this kind of quick and fast, we don't want to dwell too much on the dead rubbers. So that's how that ended up. It finished up with Holy Cross first in Group 1. We knew that going in. Toomevara second, and in third place, third place was Killadangan. They used their North title safety net, the divisional championship winners. They have that preliminary quarter final. They've been drawn against Killarone McDonald's. We'll go through the draw a little bit later, and Clounty, as we said, finished bottom of that group. Right, let's go on to group number 2. This is one of the 2 games I commentated on Tip FM over the weekend. This was Thurles Sarsfields against Cashel King Cormac's. Thurles 25 points to Cashel's 119, so it is a win for Thurles Sarsfields, but this was very, very dramatic in Holy Cross. Given the fact that Nina were well up against Mullinahone with 10 minutes to go in the other game, Nina won that game 223 to 211 for a finish. But keeping track of the scores on Twitter at the time, you could tell that Nina had done enough. They're about 10-12 points up with about 7-8 minutes to go. So you kind of felt that, okay, Nina have won that game. We don't need to worry about that too much. So then it came down to Thurles and Cashel. And as we went through the permutations the last day, if Nina were to beat Mullinahone, then Thurles would have to beat Cashel by at least 4 points to progress. Thurles beat Cashel by 3 points, so Thurles finished third in the group, Cashel finished second, and Cashel were the lucky ones in the draw. Out of the 4 runners-up, 3 of them would have been drawn to the preliminary quarterfinals. Cashel were the ones that weren't drawn to a preliminary quarterfinal, so they can put the feet up now till the last weekend in September, the 28th. That weekend, that's when the quarterfinals are on. And massive result for Cashel, beaten on the day. They're against the wind in that first half, Cashel were, but Kieran O'Dwyer broke onto a ball, the young cornerback, surged through the middle of the field and just went off. He got it on the route to 65 and brought it up to just outside the 21, hand passed it forward to David McGrath. He got inside just inside the kind of penalty area and went to ground. Referee gives a penalty. Owen Connolly comes up. He hits it at a height that, I think Paddy McCormick would have had to change sides, let's say. But so he hit it at a height where, if a goalie could pick a height, it would be in around the hip to shoulder area. It was around that, but he absolutely murdered it. So it didn't really give Paddy McCormick much chance in the goals. Just such a powerful fellow, Owen Connolly. Like, he absolutely lettered that. I have my commentary notes, the team sheets I have when I'm commentating here. 1-4 for Owen Connolly on the day. Ronan Connolly got 2 points. Owen Connolly also got an unbelievable 65. A sideline from the 65, I should say, into the road end from the far side of the field in Holy Cross. One of those ones where he was so far out, I was looking at my notes or maybe looking up the score in the other game at the time, and then I looked up and the ball was going over the bar. And I had to ask Cian Tracy, the co-commentator, to be like, what happened there? But unbelievable score from Owen Connolly. Devin Ryan got 5 points. Ger Brown is looking really, really good again. He scored 3 points. Oisin O'Donoghue at 1. Cathal Quinn had a brilliant game in the middle of the field. He's so good at kind of rooting around rucks And when he gets the ball, he's so powerful. He's a big fella, a hard man to kind of stop breaking through tackles and things like that. He had a very good game in the middle of the field. Ross Bonner chipping in with 2 points as well. Oisin O'Donoghue, as I mentioned, with that 1 point. But it was, 1-7 to 10 points at half time. Thurles did hit a good few wides in that first half. Cashel hit a lot of wides as well, though, in the game. Darragh Stakelum missed 1 or 2 frees, but it was a really windy day, really difficult for free taking. He scored 9 points for a finish. Conor Stakelum was just really good. A real leader performance. He was everywhere for Thurles. He was covering a lot of ground, doing a lot of work. Scored 5 points. Owen Purcell had one of his better games that I've seen him play. He scored 3 points, but he was winning an awful lot of frees and a lot of damage there. Paddy Creedon and Lee McCormick and Stephen Call all chipped in with a point each. Ronan Maher got 2. Billy McCarthy that got 2. Shawnee Butler come on and got 1 as well. But yeah, it was so dramatic towards the finish because, as I said, it was a draw at half time. Cashel had the wind in the second half, and then next thing Thurles just came out in the third quarter and went 5 points up. And to be honest, at that point it only looked like there was going to be one winner, and it was going to be Thurles Sarsfields. And Cashel, in fairness to him, managed to hang in there and keep that deficit below 4 points. And it was a bit of madness at the end of the game. I will say, in Thurles Sarsfield's kind of, not defence, but I thought a little bit more injury time was going to be played. I think 2.5 minutes was played. There wasn't too many complaints or anything, but I thought maybe another minute was going to be added on, just how that game played out. But Ross Bonner did so well to keep a ball in play at the end of the game. If it went out wide, Thurles probably would have got a puck out away, and who knows what could have happened. Ross Bonner keeps it in play. He's running out towards the corner flag, and you're just thinking, right, he's going to hold it up because they're surely aware that this 3 point, being down by 3 points, is perfect. And then he hits this crossfield ball back out to the 45 with 3 or 4 lads going up for it. Fortunately, Devin Ryan was the one who came down with it from Cashel, but if a Thurles man got that, they could have easily driven it down the field, and who knows, if that went over the bar, Cashel would have been out, Thurles would have been in. But as it ended, it's a 3 point win for Thurles. Not enough for them. Their first time not in the knockout stages of the County Senior Hurling Championship since 2019. So yeah, really dramatic. Big result for Cashel though, just up from the Premier Intermediate. I think I had them in the would have to be careful tier at the start of the year. But as I said at the start, that was very much contingent on that first game against Mullinahone, that if they won that, then they could easily go on. They did win that game, and they have gone on, maybe not easily gone on, but they have progressed to the knockout stages and have a quarter final to look forward to. So disappointing for Thurles. Ronan Maher just, I think the break now will do him the world of good. I'd say he probably needs a bit of a break. He doesn't look his 100% self out there, so I think fitness had been a concern in terms of injuries and things like that. And look, if Ronan Maher isn't dominating a game, you know that Ronan Maher isn't 100%, because if he is 100%, he runs the show. So he has earned a well-deserved break. The other game in that group then, Nina 223, Mullinahone 211. Big win for Nina, kind of bounce back win after the disappointment against Cashel. They led by 5 points playing into the wind at half time. Mikey Heffernan with a goal on the 38th minute. Possibly a throw. It was kind of one of those ones behind the back of the defender, and he lettered it low. Keeper did get something on it but couldn't keep it out. Tommy Heffernan got a goal then on the 55th minute, and a couple of late goals then from Mullinahone. Danny Dunn with one, and Sean Kern with a brilliant old school ball on the ground inside the 14, let fly on the ground, top of the net job. So Mullinahone go into relegation, relegation semi-finals. Nina top the group. That's huge for Nina, because similarly with Ronan Maher, Jake Morris, his kind of fitness was called into question around the time of the All-Ireland and things like that, whether he was 100%. So getting that extra week, 3 weeks now, they can kind of rest Jake up and really give him a bit of a break. So that's big for Nina. And Nina will have hopes and ambitions of going all the way. 1990, I always get mixed up as a 95 or 96 that Nina won their county title. But that's the only one they've won, so they've been looking and trying to get back to another county final and get Dan Breen back to the town. And they're 3 wins away now is how you have to look at it. So they can wait now till September 28th. So let's go on to Group 3. Dead rubber here between Lockmore, Castellani and Laura. 326 Lockmore, Laura's 117. Lorcan Egan with an own goal for well, it was a goal for Laura, but Lorcan Egan, the cornerback, just kind of ball coming across the square and tried to get a touch on it and pushed his Hurley out at it and into the back net. Ed Connolly got a very good goal, very athletic player, like when he gets running, very hard to stop. Very good goal for him. 114 to 1-7 it was at half time. Second half started 20 seconds in. Ball down to John McGrath, played into him by Noel, and he shrugged the challenge off of the defender and just stepped into it from just around the 21. Roof for the net job. Brilliant finish, maybe around the 14. No real chance for the goalkeeper. The third goal for Lockmore was young Mikey Ryan making his debut. 1-3 for him. Set up by a nice run from Owen O'Connell and a pass into Mikey Ryan. And he gave a good celebration there as well, which you always like to see from young players there enjoying themselves making their debut. So fair play to him with 1-3. But the other game in that group was the kind of key fixture here in Group 3. Drum and Inch against JK Brackens. Drum had to get a result here. A draw or a victory would have been enough for them. JK Brackens as mid-champions, if they won, they'd avoid a preliminary quarter-final, because if you were a divisional champion and you finish second in your group, you can't be drawn to another divisional champion in a preliminary quarter-final. So it was a big game for both teams, but an even bigger game for Drum and Inch, and they played really, really well. Jack Kennedy, the Brackens goalkeeper, kind of mishit a puck out and straight to a Drum and Inch man into Johnny Ryan. He buried it. That was the first minute of the game. It was 1-9 to 8 points at half time. Tony Cal went off injured for Drum and Inch. Jack Lillis came on for him, and he got a goal a few seconds into the second half. So tough one for Brackens, starting both halves, conceding a goal. You're immediately on the back foot. I thought Cormac Fitzpatrick was really, really good for Drum and Inch. Still such a young player. Like, I think he's under 20 again next year for Tipperary. He was class in the second half. He set up Lorcan Campion for his goal. Shane Doyle scored a penalty for Brackens. I have that right. Yeah, he did. And Andrew Ormond, it was funny. This game was on Saturday evening at 5 o'clock. I had done the Cashel Thurles game at 4 o'clock in Holy Cross. This drum match was on in Bursalee. So I stopped into that on the way home. And it was about 20 minutes left when I got there. And the minute I got there, it was when Lorcan Campion got the goal. And a few minutes later, Andy Ormond's ball comes in. He kind of lets it in behind, turns to run onto it. And Robbie Long has a little pullback on Andy Ormond's shoulder, and he goes down. And it was funny because I was on the bank at the roadside at the time. And from my view, I said it to the missus that time. I was like, he could be playing for that one. I don't know if it was a penalty, because there was people going nuts, like. But watching it back on Clubber, it definitely should have been a penalty. Robbie Long even gave it the kind of like, oh no, I didn't I didn't do anything. So it definitely should have been a penalty for Brackens, no doubt about that. So Andy Ormond should have had a penalty for that one. But in fairness to Drum, they're probably worthy winners on the day. Really impressed by their full back line, or definitely whether they're playing in the full back line or not, but they're 2, 3 and 4. Fintan Purcell was just really good, brilliant coming out with the ball. Lorcan Campion and Robbie Long are able to do it kind of at both ends as well. So I'm really impressed with Drum. Yeah, they're kind of playing to their ability, which they maybe didn't do for the last couple of years. And I just have written down there's a new energy about them. They just seem a little bit more up for it this year, and they've got some really talented hurlers. So they play Clounty in the next round. That's going to be such a cracking game as well in the preliminary quarterfinals. So big win there for Drum and Inch. For Brackens, it's back-to-back defeats. So they were beaten by Lockmore in the hurling and the football, and now they've been beaten by Drum and Inch. So they have Toomevara next in 2 weeks' time now in that preliminary quarterfinal. So they're going to have to try and stop the rot. They will be playing football next weekend as well. So I just feel with Brackens, some really nice hurlers, really nice style of play when it comes off running through the lines and things like that. But sometimes I think at times you need a bit of a plan B. And I just wonder, do they have the personnel? Do they have the want to go a little bit more direct? Sometimes you feel they're just missing that kind of, right, this lad's coming on, we're putting down the edge of the square and we're bailing out of the defence with a few long balls in, just to mix it up. I just feel they have to work very hard to get scores at times with all the passing and running and things like that. So that's just an observation from my thoughts, whether you agree with that or not. But that's just how I see it. But big win for Drummond Inch there in Bursalee, and they progress to the knockout stages. Group 4 now. The only thing that was set in this group was that my Carkey Burris were going to top the group no matter what, and Killer One McDonough's had a brilliant win over Roscrea, 123 to 20 points. No Jerome Cahill, so let's see if he's going to be fit for that Kildangan game in the preliminary quarterfinals in 2 weeks' time. Keane Darcy was in very good form here, 1-4 for him on the day. A real nice finish to the goal. It was kind of a lobbed ball in, edge of the square. One of those ones where the defender and goalkeeper couldn't really go for it, or kind of came in between the two of them, and he batted it, like first time volley, batted it into the back of the net. So really nice finish from Keane Darcy. Dara Tynan for Roscrea had a brilliant game. 4 points from playing the first half, 6 in total. I've written down here Keane O'Kelly won a lot of ball, really good in the air, and he's doing this kind of like swinging motion and catching the ball. He done that a lot the other day, which is really hard to stop from a big man. So 16 points to 13 to Killer One at half time. So Roscrea well in this game throughout. Craig Morgan went off with a dead leg on the 35th minute. He actually went down very early in the game, but continued on, but did have to leave the field after 35 minutes. So he's another one that will have to get back to full fitness ahead of that preliminary quarter final. I mentioned that Keane Darcy goal. That put 6 between them on the 53rd minute, so that was a big moment in the game. Paddy Williams made some brilliant saves. James Cleary made a few blocks at the back for Killer One, kind of body on the line stuff. A shot from Connor Dooley. Like, it was a good save from Paddy Williams, but you'd probably be, again, it's a weekly feature here on this show. You got to go low. You got to go low with those shots on goal. But Paddy Williams actually scored a point from inside his own D at the last score. That was the last score of the game on the 56th minute, interestingly enough. But Roscrea were probably trying to force goal scoring opportunities at that point. But Joe, it was a good performance from Roscrea. Just Killer One had that little bit extra quality. Thomas Cleary was back as well. He was had a good game. It was one kind of comical moment where he won a free and just kind of lost the rag. The ball was thrown in. He was just kind of slamming his hurley off the ground after winning the free. Maybe out of frustration that he'd been fouled a number of times, but that was just a bit of a comical moment in that game. But big win for Killer One McDonough's, second in Group 4. Big win for Bursalee, 321 to 217 winners over my Carkey Burris. As I said, my Carkey were guaranteed first place in the group, so you'd wonder whether, subconsciously, etc., you have to be up for these games. Were they up for it fully? But in fairness to Bursalee, this was probably the strongest team Bursalee have been able to field. Ray McCormick and Dan McCormick both played. Eddie Ryan, the whole lot of them, they're all kind of there, and they played really well. And this was the real Bursalee, and it's a frustrating one from a neutral perspective that we didn't get to see maybe that Bursalee earlier in the championship, because there's a lot of teams, I'd say every team that's left in the championship can be a little bit happy that Bursalee aren't in the knockout stages, because they played to their true ability the other day. Eddie Ryan, one of the best games I've ever seen from him. I don't know exactly what he finished up with scoring, but he scored, I'd say 110-ish, 112-ish, something like that. He was brilliant. Ray McCormick got a class goal, just a brilliant run through the middle of the field. A real kind of, I'm an inter-county player kind of goal, where he just took it middle of the field, took off, ball on the hurley, and a really good finish past Reece Shelley on the edge of the 21, low into the corner, right inside the post. A brilliant finish for Ray McCormick. Jerry Kelly pulled a great save out of Reece Shelley on the 22nd minute as well. Bursalee led 111 to 11 at half time. As I've written down here, Eddie Ryan in great form, goal on the 34th minute. He rounded Reece Shelley from a tight angle down at the road end side in the rag. JD Devaney got a brilliant score. I've written down here, 37th minute, watch it back. 37th minute of the game, kind of coming out the field, trying to take on his man, flicked it over his head, went in around him and put it over the bar. Such speed, brilliant form. Pity that we're not going to see him again. The third goal, see him again this championship. Third goal for Bursalee was Paddy McCormick. A brilliant low finish from him on the 45th minute. That made it 316 to 15 points. But in fairness to Mike Carkey, they clawed their way back into the game. Bill Flanagan got a goal after Kieran Morris caught a long ball on the 54th minute. That made it a 6-point game. Then Max Hackett got a really good goal 2 minutes later, and suddenly it was back to 3 points. But Bursalee, in fairness to him, finished strong. And the last puck of the game was an Eddie Ryan penalty, which he, whether he meant it or not, he blasted it over the bar. So big win for Bursalee, 321 to 217. My Carricky Burr, Stephen Walsh was back for them, so he was a county panellist earlier in the year. Really good campaign with my Carricky last year, so he was back for them. He'd been out injured, or he certainly hadn't been playing anyway the first few games, so unless he was away, but I think he was injured. So he was back, so that's a big kind of fill up for my Carricky Burris. But in general, yeah, my Carricky will be disappointed with that, but they have 3 weeks now to get their head straight for a quarter final, so they won't panic too much. For Bursalee, nice to finish on the high, but I'd imagine they might spend the winter just thinking, God, if we had just beaten Roscrea, we could have been through, or if things went differently against Killer One. So, but that was a true reflection, I think, of Bursalee, that performance. So at least they have that. And I had another thing to say about Bursalee. That's kind of gone out of my head though, but maybe it will come back into my head. But that's how Group 4 finished up. Bursalee 321, my Carricky Burris 217. And yeah, Bursalee needed Roscrea to get something from Killer One if they were to go through with that victory, but that obviously didn't happen. But a nice way to finish. And for my Carricky Burris, they have 3 weeks now to get back on the horse and focus for a quarter final. So that's how the senior ended up. The draws were made for the senior, so no relegation draws made yet, no quarter final draws made yet, but we do have, if I go over to my Twitter account here, you'll see it here, albeit in quite poor quality, and it's poor quality for me, so it's probably even worse quality by the time this is uploaded on YouTube. But we have the preliminary quarterfinals Saturday the 20th of September at 4 o'clock in Bursalee. JK Brackens against Toomevara. They met in the county, was a quarter final last year, or was it 2 years ago? Was it last year or the year before? I'm not too sure, but Toomevara won that game. So that's kind of a rematch of that one. Clouty Rossmore then against Drummond in Borlahan at 3:30 on Sunday the 21st. And at the same time on Sunday the 21st at 3:30 in Nina, you've Killadangan against Killer One McDonough's. Frustrating that those two games are on at the same time. There's not an awful lot of games on that weekend. Surely they could be spread out a little bit better. So that is a little bit disappointing. And even from picking the games to do on the radio point of view, we're only going to be able to do 2 of those 3 games. So we're not going to be able to do one of Clouty Rossmore against Drummond or Killadangan against Killer One. So that's going to be disappointing from a Tip FM point of view, but even a general supporter point of view, you want to be able to get to see as many of these games as possible. So that is disappointing, but that's the way it looks in the Senior Championship. Before we move on, let's go to our predictions. So make sure you can all see that. So I predicted Holy Cross to beat Clonalty. That is incorrect. Clonalty won. I did predict Toomevara, so I'll give myself that. That was an upset in the bookmakers. So yeah, I can be happy with that one. That is Toomevara won that game. I predicted Cashel to beat Thurles. They didn't. Thurles won that game. Did predict Nina to beat Mullinhone. I did predict Lockmore to beat Lura, and I did predict Drummond to beat Brackens. Drummond were nearly 2-1, which I was really surprised to see. After I recorded the podcast, I predicted Killer One to beat Roscrea, and I actually predicted my Carricky Burris to beat Bursalee, and Bursalee won that. So from the senior, let's see, out of 8, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 8. It's a pretty good hit rate, you'll have to say. But right, let's fly down through the Premier Intermediate now, 34 minutes into this podcast. A reminder to like the video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Right, Premier Intermediate, Girton Glengoule 223, Sean Tracy's 121. Didn't see any of this game now, but Girton topping Group 1 there. Moyne Temple with a 116 to 115 victory over Thurles Sarsfields. That was a big win for Moyne, but not enough. If they had won it by 5 or 6 points, I think if they won it by 4 points, Moyne Temple would have avoided relegation, and it would have been Sean Tracy's in there. But they only won it by a point, and it was a Grole O'Connor 21-yard free that he leathered into the back of the net late on that won the game for Moyne Temple but wasn't enough for Moyne. They finish fourth in the group. Sean Tracy's finished third. Sarsfield's finished second. So Sean Tracy's, Moyne Temple and Sarsfield's were all on 2 points each. Then it came down to that score difference that we went through last week. And if I have that sheet in front of me, I'll be able to give you the exact permutations. I do have that sheet here printed out. So what are we, Premier Intermediate? Yeah, so the scenario was a Moyne Temple win and a Girton Who win. So yeah, Sarsfields had a +7 score difference, so they lost by 1, so they go to +6. Tracy's were -2 and they were playing Girton Who, so that doesn't affect their score difference in this scenario with the 3 teams on 2 points, so they remain on -2. So you have Sarsfields +6, Tracy's -2, Moyne Temple he started the day on -5. They won by a point, so they went to -4. So if they had won by another couple of points, or if they won by 4 points, they would have been on -1. And Sean Tracy's would have been on -2. So that's how close it was for Moyne Temple to avoid the relegation playoffs. But they are in there now, and Girton Who top the group, and Sarsfields finish in second place and go to the knockout stages. I believe they've been drawn to a preliminary quarter final, haven't they? They have been drawn against Ballina. That's on Saturday, the 20th, in Templederry at 4 o'clock there. So North champions Ballina in action there. We'll move on to Group 2. Silvermines with a big win over Aero Gannacarthy. 219 to 217 was the full-time score. Very good game in Bursley. That was on before the Drum and Inch, and JK Brackens won. Big win for the Mines. Andy Hayden and Sean Nolan with the goals. Sean Nolan had a really, really good game for a young lad. I think he scored 1-5 or something like that, or had a very good game. And when I was watching it back, he was winning a lot of ball. Andy Hayden with a good finish for his goal too. Dara Kelly scored a real nice goal for Aero Gannacarthy, which is something we've kind of come to expect. Dinny Cross likewise actually got a very nice goal, a great run by Gannacarthy down through the middle of the field. Dara Kelly out in front of his man turned him and just in one-on-one with the goalkeeper. But there was 2 red cards for Aero Gannacarthy in this game. A second yellow for Brian Fox early in the second half, their centre back. I thought it was a bit harsh. I thought it was clumsy. The Mines man kind of cleared the ball and Brian Fox continued on into him. I just did think it was a little bit harsh, but I'm only watching it back on the club angle. If you were there, maybe you had a better view of it. I did think Silvermines' Conor McKelvey was lucky not to see red. Now, I am good friends with the Mines lads, and they've informed me that Conor McKelvey, it was Paddy Bradshaw who the challenge was on, and they informed me that Paddy Bradshaw slipped. I have people from Aero Gannacarthy coming on to me saying that Conor McKelvey should have definitely been a red card. My own opinion, I think Conor McKelvey was lucky not to see red, to be honest. He kind of jumped up into it. It was straight into the head of Paddy Bradshaw, so it was quite dangerous. And then a few minutes later, an off-the-ball incident with, I believe it was Paul Downey, the wing-back for Aero Gannacarthy, hit Conor McKelvey. So he was sent off, so they were down to 13. And then Sean Nolan's goal came a few minutes after that to go 6 points up. So you kind of felt there was no way back for Aero Gannacarthy. But there was, they stayed at it. Did a few 21-yard frees that were kept out by the Mines. And Aero Gannacarthy, similar to their game the last day against Borland Douala, hit a few wides late on from frees and from play that just really cost them. So they only lost the game by 2 points, but it's a huge win for the Mines. They've exceeded expectation. I'm getting a bit of grief from the Mines lads now because I keep predicting them to lose and they've won. So I've asked them what do they want from me the next day, and I think the word is they want me to stay predicting them to lose. So they have a quarter final to look forward to in 3 weeks' time, so they can rest up. But a brilliant win for the Mines. Some really nice performances. Pal Emi's form as well, very good for the Mines, getting on the score sheet quite a lot. But yeah, the goals there from Sean Nolan and Andy Hayden. The other game in that group was Templederry against Borland Douala. This was a dead rubber, but Templederry Sean Ryan was just unmarkable. The 2 goals he got were pure, like 50-50 balls into him. He wins it, takes on his man, scores, and he set up the other goal for Templederry. Sean Collins with that one. Borland Douala will be disappointed that, from my making, they had close to full strength, but again, it's that thing of they're guaranteed top place. You're never going to have that intensity when you're going into relegation. You probably have to try and get something a performance more before you go into the relegation. You don't want to be going into the relegation off the back of another bad performance. So it was a brilliant performance by Templederry, and the big word there, or big news there, is that James Woodlock has gone in with them. So talk about a brilliant kind of managerial signing, someone who you definitely want in your corner, particularly for a relegation scrap, with just his ability to motivate and tactically very, very sound and that sort of thing. So that's a big coup for Templederry. Sean Ryan, unmarkable. So Templederry have been drawn against Burgess, my team, in the relegation semi-finals. So yeah, we're going to have a plan in place for Sean Ryan, because he is just on fire, as he has been the last couple of years with Templederry. Let's move on to group number 3, but for group 2 it's Borland first. Borland Douala first place, Silvermine second, Aero Gannacarthy third. They have a preliminary quarter final, and that is against Moneygall, I believe. Against Moneygall on Sunday the 21st at 3:30 in Templemore. So Aero Gannacarthy not finished yet. They will feel they're maybe a little bit aggrieved the last couple of games. I mentioned how one or two decisions didn't go their way against Borland Douala. Maybe one or two things didn't go their way against the Mines there, but ultimately they probably have themselves to blame as well for a bit of bad shooting. But they're still in the championship, and they're going to still be a very hard team to beat. Let's move on to Group 3. Upper Church Drumban with a dramatic victory over Ballina, 116 to 115 it finished up. Obviously a really tight game throughout. Matthew Power got a goal in injury time. That looked to have won the game for Ballina. That put them up by 2 points, but it was a Gavin Ryan free 3 minutes into injury time on his own 65, just lobbed it in, and it went the whole way into the back of the net. It might have come off Simon Grace's helmet. I don't know, was there a deflection in there? Simon Grace is the Ballina goalkeeper. Found its way into the back of the net, ball poked out, broke around the middle of the field for 30 seconds or so, and then that was full time. So a sickening defeat for Ballina, because and I must say as well, a huge win for Upper Church, because 3 minutes into injury time, with Moneygall beating Burgess in the other game, Upper Church Drumban were only on 3 points, Moneygall were on 4, and Ballina were going to be on 5 points as it stood, and Upper Church would have been gone. They would have been finished in third place in the group, and they would have been out of the championship. That ball ends up in the back of the net. Upper Church top the group with 5 points. Ballina go to third with 3 points, and it's Moneygall who are in second with 4 points. So that is a huge moment, and who knows where Upper Church Drumban could go on. They're obviously a very hard team to beat. Who knows where they could end up now in this championship? That could be a huge moment for them. So a huge win there for Upper Church Drumban. The other game in that group was Moneygall against Burgess. Moneygall winning that one 224 to 317. Really strong wind in Toomevara for this game. Moneygall had it in the first half. Owen Dunn stuck a penalty into the back of net. It was 113 to 18 at half time. As far as I know, that could have been 113 to 15. Not entirely sure. But they had the lead. Tig White for Moneygall, I saw him in the under-19 final for Moneygall Clonakilty against Burgess just over a week ago. He was really good that day. I was really impressed with him again here for Moneygall in that full forward line. Well able to win his own ball, well able to take a score. A quick, fast player, a real nice player for Moneygall is Tig White. Kieran Grace got a brilliant goal for Burgess. Went on a real nice run. The other goals for us then were Stephen Kerwin and Bill O'Flaherty, who came on, and a classic Bill goal, long ball down on top of him, won it close range into the back of the net. Bob Kenny got the second goal for Moneygall. That was 3 minutes into the second half, and Moneygall were up by about 11-12 points early in that second half. Burgess did get it back to 4 points, but Moneygall pushed on to win the game. So Moneygall, first year up at the grades, they're unbeaten. They drew their first 2 games, won that game, and they go into that preliminary quarter final against Aero Gannacarthy. Then quickly in Group 4, Carrick Swan 115, St Mary's 114. Watched back a bit of this today. Peter McGarry got a goal early on for St Mary's, but Kieran Lonergan in the goals for Carrick Swan was injured at the time. Kind of a weird collision. I think might have been with his own man, but then I think something hit him in the eye or something, and he went down, and it broke off to Peter McGarry, and he had an open goal. Luke O'Dwyer, the wing-back for Carrick Swan, almost broke his own man's hand under a high ball. Callum Lanigan went up, and Luke O'Dwyer kind of one-handed let fly and smacked the hand of Callum Lanigan. You could hear it. But fortunately, all was okay, and Callum Lanigan was able to continue, as he will play a big part in the game, as he always does. So it was 9 points to 1-4 at half time. Carrick-Swan had a big breeze in that game and feathered in that first half, only led by 2, but it was kind of tit for tat then in the second half. Aidan Waters came on and scored a goal for the Swan. 53 minutes when that hit the back of the net, so it was 1-12 apiece heading down the stretch, and it was a Callum Lanigan free into the wind to win it just around the 65 central position. That was in additional time, so a 1 point win there for Carrick-Swan. St Mary's year is finished because Killinall beat Clonakilty in the other game in that group, 325 to 121. Joe O'Dwyer with a serious finish for a goal after 7 minutes. It was 112 to 14 points at halftime, so a real close game. Mark Stakelum, though, pounced on a stray puck out from the goalkeeper of Clonakilty. I think it might have been hit straight to Mark Stakelum or to a Killinall man, and then played to Mark Stakelum. He put it into the back of the net. That was 215 to 14 points. But Clonakilty clawed it back. There was 2 points in it with 10 minutes to go. Killinall pushed on again. Then Cian O'Dwyer stepped up for a penalty on the 57th minute and buried it into the back of the net. That made it a 3-point game. Then down the other end, a few minutes later, Bubbles came up and took a penalty for Killinall, and he stuck it into the back of the net. That was to go up by 7, and Killinall pushed on then 325 to 121. So maybe a scoreline that doesn't reflect Clonakilty's performance, but ultimately Killinall just too strong, and Killinall go through second in that group, avoided a preliminary quarter-final, and by the look of the draw, and they have a quarter-final to prepare for now in 3 weeks' time. So the championship as a whole, I probably should have done this with the senior as well. The teams we have left in the Premier Intermediate, our group winners are Girton Hooglangool, Boherlahan Douala, Upper Church Drumban and Carrick-Swan. And then our runners-up, Thurles Sarsfields, Silvermines, Moneygall and Killinall. And then our preliminary quarter-finals are Éire Óg Anacarthy and Ballina. Éire Óg Anacarthy taking on Moneygall and Ballina taking on Thurles Sarsfields. And then relegation in the Premier Intermediate grade, Moyne Temple Toohey against Clonakilty and Templederry Kenyans against Burgess. So yeah, you just hate to be in a relegation semi-final. There are games that take on the life of their own, but that's something that will be taking place in 2 weeks' time. I'll run you down through how that looks in the senior championship as well. Group winners, Holy Cross Ballycahill, Nina Rogue, Lockmore Castleiney and Moycarkey Burris. Runners-up, Toomey Vara, Cashel Kincormac's, Drummond and Killer 1. Preliminary quarter-finals then, Clouty Rossmore, JK Brackens and Killadangan. Clouty will play Drum, Brackens against Toom, Killadangan against Killer 1. And then in the relegation, Clouty Rossmore, Mullinahone, Lura and Rossgrey. And again, no relegation semi-final draws have been made yet in the senior championship. We'll have to wait and see how Clouty Rossmore get on before we determine that. Let's quickly run down through the intermediate grade then. Another big result for Mull Rovers. They finished second in Group 1 after they got a draw against Kappa White, 220 to 123. That is just another brilliant performance for Mull Rovers. To come up from the Junior A, kind of well beaten in the first game by Skeena-Rinky, and to come back, get that big result over Portroe, and then draw with Kappa White to go through. Huge result for them. For Portroe, it's a sickening one for them. They beat Skeena-Rinky 4-17 to 13 points. Goals there, 2 for Mark Jennery. One was just long ball in that he caught really well and finished from close range. Diarmid Boyle got a goal. Jack Maloney got one as well. And the goals for Portroe came at key times. Two in the first 7 minutes of the first half, 2 in the first 7 minutes of the second half. And they were kind of the key difference. John Sheedy with 11 points there. But for Port, they had done enough to overturn their poor score difference from the Mull Rovers defeat. But because Mull Rovers drew, if Mull Rovers lost that game by a point to Kappa White, I think with that win for Portroe, they would have went through. So it's a real sickener for them. They finished third in the group. But for Skeena-Rinky, they go on to the relegations. And for Kappa White and Mull Rovers, Kappa White go through as group winners. Mull Rovers go through in second place. So again, fair play to Burgess man JP Grace involved there with Mull Rovers. Moving on to Group 2 of the Intermediate Hurling Championship. What a game this was. Ballingarry 324, Clouty Rossmore 323. Dylan Walsh came on for Ballingarry and he got an insane point from the side. Well, maybe not insane, that's a bit too much, but it was on the sideline just by the 45, deep in injury time, to win that game. A draw would have been enough for Ballingarry to go through, but even at that, they did really well to come back into that game. Clonoulty goalkeeper David Egan scored a goal from a free in his own 21, bounced off the AstroTurf in Cashel and into the back of the net. Aidan White with 2 goals as well for Clonoulty. Tommy McGrath with 2 goals for Ballingarry. The second goal made it a 1-point game after 54 minutes, so they were down by 6. They were down by 6 points at halftime, Ballingarry, and were still down in that second half. Until that goal brought it down to a 1-point game. Then Ian Ivor's goal in the 63rd minute, that looked like the goal to kind of seal the win. That put them up by 4. But Aidan White flicked the ball into the back of the net after a 21-yard free was saved in injury time, and then it was a draw game 68 minutes into the game, so 8 minutes into additional time, and then Dylan Walsh put that winner over from the sideline. So huge result for Ballingarry. They go through, have avoided a preliminary quarter-final. They go through in second place, so they get 3 more weeks to maybe fully get Dylan Walsh back so he can start that game. We all know how important he is, but massive win for them. Brilliant performance from Clonoulty's second team. Aaron Ryan in particular got a brilliant score out on the sideline at one stage, if my memory serves me right. The other game in that group was a dead rubber, which Knockavilla Doneski Kickhams won 24 points to 3-8. The goals for Drummond Inch there from Paul Kendy, Jamie Shanahan and Oliver Barry. But yeah, some nice scores there throughout that game for Knockavilla. Owen Horgan actually was probably unlucky for one of the goals. He made a brilliant save. I think that was the first goal that Paul Kendy scored. Yeah, Knockavilla topped that group, Drummond Inch bottom and Ballingarry second. Group 3 then, Arvale Rovers with a big comprehensive win over Carrickdavins, 423 to 311. A brilliant performance from Warren Jones. He must have scored about 112, scored some cracking scores. He actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Ger Brown in his striking. White helmet, kind of long stride, a real nice striker off that left-hand side. And Arvale Rovers, yeah, those goal scorers. Oren Jones scored a 21-yard free. There was 2 goals for Shane Leahy, and Owen Lonergan got a goal there as well for Arvale. For Carrickdavins, Patrick Harris scored 1, Kevin Butler scored 1, and Lee Mackey got a long-range free that ended up into the back of the net. I think Arvale will be disappointed with the goals they conceded. They were kind of softish in nature, but a really good win and a must-win game for Arvale. It was a winner or draw, and they go through. That was one of them second against third place games, so a comprehensive win there for Arvale Rovers. Carrickdavins finish third in that group. Newport finished bottom of Group 3. We knew that going into this game against Bursacane, but similarly to some of the other teams who were already destined for relegation, Clonoulty was one of them, got a brilliant performance here, and Templary was another one. 4-19 to 21-point winners over Bursacane. Brian Tobin with a hat-trick. Colin Floyd involved with 2 of the goals, snapping ball, playing them on. One of them was a kind of flicked ball in by Colin Floyd, and Brian Tobin with this brilliant touch kind of on the turn into his hands, finished it into the back of net. Oren Connors with the other goal there for Newport. It was 113 to 10 points at half-time. Newport up by 6 against the Breeze, but it was the goals there that were the difference. So big win for Newport. For Bursacane, they'll worry about their quarter-final in 3 weeks' time, and they'll have 3 weeks, as I said, to get prepared for that. So they topped the group with Arvale Rovers in second and Newport in fourth with Davins in third. Then Group 4, Kilsheelan and Kilcash, 119 to 113 winners over Ballybacon Grange. Brendan Cummins scored 1-5 in that game, and interestingly, he scored, what's he scored, 5 long-range frees and a 21-yard free. He roll rises it for them all. Even when he's 100 yards out inside his own 45, you'd think he'd kind of, scoop it and stand into it, but his technique is, it's stood the test of time, that's for sure. 50 years of age, from long range, 1-5 for him with the roll rise, even the roll rise on the 21, so he's able to generate so much power. Barry Keogh got a really good goal for Kilsheelan there, kind of an intercepted pass in around the 65, got onto Barry Keogh and took it in and lettered it high into the back net, top corner job. Really good goal there for Barry Keogh. So that was a must-win for Kilsheelan. They won it by 6 points. Really close game though throughout. Ballybacon hurled pretty well, kept it close all the way, but just beaten by the better team in Kilsheelan on the day. The other game in that group was Golden Kilfeacle against Shannon Rovers. Golden 226, Shannon Rovers 122. Carl Hogan with the goal for Rovers. I was really impressed by him. I hadn't really seen much of him before. Kind of nippy, kind of midfielder, number 9 on his back, but really fast. It seems to be a really nice hurler. I was overall impressed with Shannon Rovers because I wouldn't have seen much of Rovers in the last couple of years, but John O'Mara looks a nice hurler there. Obviously, they have Conall Moore in there as well, brilliant hurler, the Hannigans. There's another guy in full forward that I can't think of his name right now. I feel like his name might be... do I have my programme with me? I do. I'm going to have to get it. The full forward for Shannon Rovers. Maybe you're roaring at the podcast here now. Eamon Hawk, that's it. I knew it was Hawk. As well as, they have a lot of talented players there. But Golden Kilfeacle, it was 16 points to 111 at half-time, a 2-point lead. But it was an Andy Burns goal on the 41st minute, a great finish there. That made it 119 to 113. And then he got another goal, Andy Burns, a long ball into the edge of the square, got a flick on it, and that was on 51 minutes. That made it 222 to 118. It was kind of the ceiling score there. It made it from a 4-point lead to a 7-point lead, and they saw out the victory from that point. So Shannon Rovers finished third in the group, Golden finished top, Kilsheelan finished second. We do have a preliminary quarter-final. It will be Shannon Rovers against Arravale Rovers. So I have that here. You'll see it there, Shannon Rovers against Arravale Rovers. So the group winners to go through it again in the intermediate, Kappa White, Knockavilla, Doneski Kickham's, Bursacane and Golden Kilfeacle. The runners-up, Mull Rovers, Ballingarry, Arravale Rovers and Kilsheelan. Shannon Rovers have a preliminary quarter-final, and that has been drawn, and it's against Arravale Rovers. Then at the other side of the intermediate grade, the relegation is going to pit Newport against Drummond and Skeheenarinky against Ballybacon Grange. So some interesting fixtures there in the intermediate championship. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Let's go through our predictions and how we got on there actually in both the Premier Intermediate and Intermediate. So in the Premier Intermediate, I predicted Thurles Sarsfields to beat Moyne. Moyne got a last minute 21-yard free and won the game. Predicted Girton Who to beat Tracy's. That happened. Predicted Borland to beat Templederry. That didn't happen. I predicted Aerogannacarty to beat the Mines. That didn't happen. I predicted Upperchurch to beat Ballina. That did happen. I always go for my own Burgess. They couldn't get the job done for me, unfortunately. I need to correct that. Make sure I have all these correct now. So Moneygall won that game. I predicted Carrick Swan to win, and I predicted Killinall to beat Clonakilty. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 8. Not great, but those third round games are tricky with some dead rubbers and things like that. Then in the intermediate grade, we predicted Kappa White to beat Mull Rovers. That was a draw. We did predict Skeheenarinky to beat Portroe, which looks bad now because Portroe kind of hammered them. But I'd love to know what happened Port in that Mull Rovers game to lose by 15 points. It's hard to back a team to win a game after they've just been beaten by 15 points and they're playing against a team that beat the team that beat them by 15 points. So it was a brilliant win for Portroe though against Skeheenarinky. The other games then I did predict Ballingarry. Dylan Walsh got it done with that late point. Predicted Knockavilla to win. I predicted Bursacane to beat Newport. That was a dead rubber one, hard to predict. And Newport won the game. I predicted Arravale Rovers to beat Carrick Davins, which they did. Predicted Kilsheelan to beat Ballybacon, and I correctly predicted Golden to beat Shannon Rovers. So we did pretty well there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we predicted 5 out of 8. what did we? 14 out of 24, I think. If I'm not mistaken, we got 5 out of the 8 in the intermediate, 5 out of the 8 in the senior. That's 10, and 4 out of the 8 in the Premier Intermediate. So 14 out of 24. So if we go back through the weeks, round 3 we got 14, round 2 we got 13, so that's 27, and then round number 1 we got 17, so what's that, 44 out of 72 was how much we predicted correctly. What's that, 72 by 44 multiplied by 100, is that right, to get the percentage? No, I've done that the other way around, so 44 divided by 72. 61% hit rate there for the group stages. So, it's par for the course, I would say. Very difficult championship to predict. So that is it. The reaction to the draw, I've kind of gone through that throughout. Really looking forward to those preliminary quarterfinals. Just a disappointment that they're not on at the same time, or that they are on at the same time, because I certainly love to see that Kildangan against Killer game and Drum against Clonalty, but only going to be able to see one, unfortunately. Other things then to make note of, we'll scroll down. I do have some listeners' talking points. The head high tackles, which we mentioned, the Willie Connors one. We mentioned the Conor McKelvey one from the Silvermines game. I think we kind of covered those. Favourites, who are the favourites? Premier Intermediate wide open was some of the things that were coming in. Lockmore, I just think as I go down through, like, the teams that are left, of which there's 11 left in the County Senior Hurling Championship: Holy Cross, Nina, Lockmore, Mycarkey, Toom, Cashel, Drum, Killer 1, Clonalty, Brackens, Kildangan. I think you'd have to say Lockmore are still the team to beat. They're the reigning champions. They have showed nothing but high-powered scoring in every game. So, it's hard to back against them. They've 3 weeks now to prepare for this quarter-final. They're going to be a hard team to beat. Their next game will be in Semple Stadium. They're so experienced. So it'll take a really good team to beat Lockmore. So I'd probably still have them as my favourites. And then after that, this is an open championship. Very, very open. A lot of teams can beat anyone. I think anyone left in this competition can beat any of the other teams. And I firmly believe that, Clonalty, could you see them beating a Lockmore Castleiney? I wouldn't be backing them to beat Lockmore, but it could happen. They've a lot of talent in that Clonalty team. And they finished bottom of their group. It's just the way it is. So you probably fear for one or two teams in terms of, Brackens lost 2 in a row. Someone was on to me about that, about Kildangan and Brackens. Are they slipping because of back-to-back defeats? For Kildangan, I just think that remember I said I forgot it. I had something to say about Bursley and I forgot about it. I've just remembered it. For Kildangan and Bursley, they had that Long North Championship campaign. Some of the other teams did as well in terms of Brackens. Brackens, another one, of course. And I wonder, with the condensed nature of the Tip Championship this year, because Tip went on and won the All Ireland, and we had the divisional championships kind of squeeze into 10 days or so. Those teams probably maybe suffered a little bit come the county championship when you reflect back on it. Now, Mycarkey Burris, fortunately for them, they topped their group despite losing the mid-final. In the West, Cashel, Cashel and Clonalty were both in the West final. Clonalty, to be fair, that was just one game, so maybe that doesn't count as much in terms of wear and tear on the bodies as maybe it did for the North finalists and the mid finalists, just given they played more games. You see Kildangan there and Bursley probably just paid the price a little bit in terms of looking a bit leggy, so they'll need to rest up in terms of Kildangan and Brackens. But Brackens can't really rest up. They have football next weekend. Kildangan do as well in the Premier Junior, but I don't think any of their big guns will be playing in that. Well, maybe some of them do. Some of them are very good footballers as well. But I'd imagine their focus will be on the hurling. So really open championship, really hard to predict. And isn't it brilliant? I made the point before, and I don't want to labour the point, but just the fact that did Ballygunner win that final by 22 points for 12 in a row down in Waterford. That just, I heard John Milan talk with Michael Verney today on the Independent Sport podcast just about, it's just not good for Waterford. So we're lucky that we have this really open championship that it's really, really hard to call, and long may it last. And that's how it goes across the 3 divisions. Like in the Premier Intermediate, the teams left are Gertnahoe, Borherlan, Upperchurch, Carrick Swan, Sarsfield, Silvermines, Moneygall, Killinall, Aero, Gannacarthy and Ballina. It's really open. Like Gertnahoe and Carrick Swan were the teams I had as favourites at the start. I probably haven't seen anything to take that tag away from either of those teams. Have I seen anything from anyone else that would push them up into that bracket? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think all those teams, all the other teams then are probably on a similar tier. They could all go on and go on a run, so to speak. But Intermediate Championship then, Capawhite, Knockavilla, Bursakane and Golden are the group winners, and Shannon Rovers are still in it. Kilsheelan, Arvale, Ballingarry and Mull Rovers. I still think Golden are probably the team to beat in that, but the likes of a Capawhite, those group winners are all very strong. Capawhite beat Golden in the West final, so they're obviously going to be right there as well. But another really open championship that's hard to call. So it's been brilliant so far. We're really blessed, and I can't wait to be looking forward next week to the games, the preliminary quarter-final and relegation semi-final weekend. We will have a podcast next week. For myself, I'm actually away this coming weekend, so I have a few days off. I'm heading over to New York. A few of the lads living over there. We're going to a Buffalo Bills and New York Jets game as well. So as listeners may know, I'm a big fan of the NFL. The Buffalo Bills had an unbelievable win over the Baltimore Ravens. If you're not into the NFL, I'd still recommend you look up the highlights of that game, 41-40. So I'm a big fan of Josh Allen there. So really looking forward to seeing him in the flesh next week at the MetLife Stadium on Sunday. So can't wait for that one. And then I get back on the early hours of Wednesday morning into Shannon Airport. So it'll probably be Thursday by the time we get the preview podcast out next week. So that is something that's just the plan going forward. So looking forward to that time off and seeing some NFL in action. I've been to a game before. I was over in New York a couple of years ago, and we went to the New York Giants against the Colts in the MetLife Stadium, and that was a game the Giants had to win and to get into the playoffs, and they won it, and brilliant atmosphere and all that. So I can't wait to get to that this weekend. So yeah, for this week's podcast, thanks for tuning in. We went on much longer than I expected, but there's a lot of games to review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you took something from it, at least a bit of entertainment, or something to fill the noise on your drive, or as you should be working, or something like that. So like the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Follow me at Paul Carroll Sport on Twitter, on Instagram and on TikTok as well if you haven't already. But that is it for me. I will chat to you at some stage next week, and yeah, enjoy the week ahead. Good luck and God bless.